All right. Well, hello and welcome everyone to another YouTube live session here from VantagePoint AI. So excited to be joining you today for what I think is going to be a pretty great session, especially with things coming up in just the overall holiday season and this time of year. There can be some really great opportunities. So before we jump into our session for today, where hopefully you guys will learn more than just one or two things about the markets today and how to use artificial intelligence in trading, do me a favor, let me know, are you currently using the VantagePoint software? That's going to be an important baseline for us today, just to establish if we have any users in the session of VantagePoint currently, or whether maybe you're just seeing VantagePoint for the first time. So I'm going to go ahead and give you guys just a quick minute to find the chat. And in fact, the chat is going to be really important to our session today. So do me a huge favor, even if you haven't yet, go ahead, because I see some responses, but if you haven't yet, go ahead and find the chat window where you can type into me, and in the comments section, of course, that you can hear me, one, loud and clear, always good to do a sound check, and also let me know, again, whether you're a current VantagePoint user or whether this is the first time you're seeing the software today. I'd be happy to introduce that to you, but if you are a user, then again, we're going to dive into all things education, so whether you're a user or maybe seeing it for the first time, I know that this session will be helpful for you to gain more confidence in your technical analysis. So after all, that's why we're here, education. So just keep in mind that as we dive into any chart and anything to deal with trading, trading involves risk. Of course, it's difficult. So please make sure you manage your risk, your capital, and your expectations, because there is no crystal ball or holy grail to the markets, but I think you'll find artificial intelligence can give you a pretty significant edge. So I see some of you guys typing in the chat as we go. So I'm going to take a minute to look at those and get our charts pulled up for today. And also keep in mind, I'm going to be asking for symbols here in just a few moments. So don't type those in yet because I don't want to miss them. There's quite a few of you in the session today, but we're going to go ahead and get there in just a moment. So get those ticker symbols ready, if you will, and we'll jump on into the charts. All right, I think everybody should be seeing my screen. Wow, we do have quite a few users in the session today. So thanks, guys. Some who's been using it for years. Likewise, right? So absolutely, I've been using the software for over half of a decade and never ceases to amaze me. So hey, Alex, thank you for being here. Nermon, thank you. All right, guys. Wow, quite a few responses here. Frank, so glad to have you in. Looks like we have a little bit of a mix. And some of you who might need some help using VantagePoint, well, I'm glad you made it to the session for today, because that's what we're going to dive into. So I've got a couple of charts already pulled up for today, but guess what? Our main focus for today is going to be identifying opportunities. In fact, do me a huge favor. In the comments section, let me know, do you struggle finding opportunities? You can give me a yes or a no, but I want to know, do you struggle finding opportunities? That is a big challenge for a lot of traders in the market, is finding the best of the best opportunities. And maybe when you do find an opportunity, it might not be the right time. So how do you get in at the right time, get out at the right time to really maximize your efforts in the markets? And well, I can tell you artificial intelligence can definitely help you with that, but we'll dive into that in just a moment as I get some of these comments coming on in. Perfect. All right, guys, thanks. Yeah, welcome to the live stream. All right, so we're going to dive into live analysis with you guys today, and let's go ahead and kick that off right now. So for those of you who maybe newer to VantagePoint, maybe this is the first time you're seeing it, understand that what you're seeing on the screen is artificial intelligence at work, in action, in the financial markets for your benefit. All right, this is artificial intelligence looking behind the scenes at many different markets, millions of different data points, and in fact, markets for every market that you want to look at here that's available in the software is analyzed by the artificial intelligence, by the neural networks to find the markets that are driving that market. So if we take a look sort of at the market details here, I'm going to just open this up for everyone to see. Give me 1 second. If we can get this to load. All right, there we go. All right, gotta love some technical difficulties there, but we're back. Sorry about that. And if you can see here, we've got our kind of parent market here, which is an individual stock. These markets surrounding this asset are really what's driving and impacting the individual market itself, which all, in short, goes into the predictive analysis that we see in VantagePoint. So when you're looking at a chart in VantagePoint, much like FMC Technologies, you're not just simply looking at this particular asset like you would in your trading platform. You're looking at the driving factors and how those are going to influence this market moving forward, so you can get a better idea and a bigger picture on the trend ahead, so you can plan and prepare your trade strategies. So let's take a look at how to use that predictive technology here in VantagePoint. Super simple for those of you who might need a recap. Looks like some of you are struggling to find opportunities. Some of you are okay with that, but maybe just reading the software a little bit with more confidence, right? So let's certainly take a look at that. I'm just getting my pen loaded here. Okay, so if we take a look, oh, sorry guys, there we go. All right, I got my pen now, so we should be in good working order. There it is. All right, so notice what we have here is a crossover. I like to call this a bullish crossover. You'll hear me say that a lot because we can find a lot of them in the software. We can find a lot of them, in the markets, and find these nice bullish trends that are predicted to move forward and continue moving in a bullish direction for up to 1, 2, and 3 days in advance. So if you take a look at the blue line crossing over the black line, it's really that simple. The trend is even color coded for you, so it's going to turn green when it is signaling bullishness. Now if we look back to the chart, we're going to look at that second point of confirmation. You're going to find 4 points of key confirmation levels here within VantagePoint. Our second point is going to be that neural index. We want price action to really match up with that trend expectation. And so when we see price action, or the neural index, right? Everybody say it with me, neural index. Can be a mouthful, but this is looking at price action over the next 2 days. So when we see those two in confluence, in agreement, that's going to give us nice confidence that we would expect to see this bullish trend continue. Now, we also would look at measures of strength. So if you're looking at measures of strength, you're going to look down at the predictive differences down at the bottom, and we can see here that we have those trending up. All 3 of those predictive differences, again, momentum or strength, are confirming that we have bullish strength, right, moving into the trend. Well, isn't that what you really want? As a swing trader, you want things moving in your direction in favor of your expected market movement. And so being able to see those ahead of time is incredibly powerful. That's step 1, 2, and 3. All right, there's a 4th point of confirmation. That's going to be this predictive trade candle over on the side. All right, so every day this trade candle is going to update, at least at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Every evening, the software is going to update to give you the next day's predictive information so you can plan and prepare ahead of time for those market movements. And so having a predictive trade range can be very powerful, knowing where to set your entries, maybe where to set your stops, maybe a profit target if you're a short-term trader. Maybe you like to scalp, maybe you like to day trade, right? All sorts of different strategies can utilize a predictive range. And if you know where the market's likely to hit a low and likely to hit a high for the day, just imagine what that could do for your decision making and your trading in and of itself. Do you think you might be able to find a better entry price? Might be able to time that profit target a little bit more accurately? I would venture to say yes. In the thousands of traders that I've been able to help, it's definitely something that's helped improve a lot of traders' results. So let's go ahead and dive on into a couple of charts. But you know what? I'm getting ahead of myself. So let me back up just a minute, because Entry is only one part, right? Entry right here, only one part of the trade strategy. In fact, I usually like to look at a trade strategy in 3 separate phases. So if you're taking notes, you'll want to write this down. It's going to be phase 1, which would be the entry. Then you have phase 2, would be position management. And then phase 3 would be your exit. So think of a trade strategy from those 3 different perspectives. Each piece of that strategy is going to require a little different perspective from you as the trader, and they should all be thought about ahead of time. So let's repeat. 1, entry. 2, position management, and 3, going to be that exit as well. So diving back on into the charts here, we can see potential entry. What does that setup look like for you? And I'm going over this in more detail today because we're actually going to use these same concepts in the IntelliScan. Now, that's our screener. That's our stock screener that we use here in VantagePoint to scan on these predictive data points, these predictive indicators, okay? So let's look to see what types of opportunities are giving us full confirmation. And when we see full confirmation, again, along with that predictive trade candle, we can let the software do the heavy lifting, do the hard work, and say, hey, you know what? I really like these types of opportunities. Give me something that's going to yield these potential results instead of sifting through thousands of different individual stocks or relying on some newsletter that may or may not work out. You can now have the predictive data here in the software, and we'll use all of this within our IntelliScan here in just a few moments. So, of course, we're going to scan today for opportunities and let the artificial intelligence just do the work for us. Let me ask you this, and I know it's somewhat rhetorical question, but I want to make sure everybody's awake. All right. It's a little later in the day, right? Holiday weekend coming up. So I want to know, who would like to make their trading more efficient? If you want to make your trading more efficient, just do me a favor and type in me in the comment section. All right. And while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe as well, because we are always trying to provide more education, more resources for not only our VantagePoint family members, those users of VantagePoint, but also just traders out there. We know that, trading can be difficult and you don't have to do it alone without any resources. So always trying to provide additional education. Everyone, Nishak, that's actually a really, really great response. Everybody wants to be a little bit more efficient, unless you're like a glutton for punishment, right? And listen, we all know that you're probably very busy. Each and every one of you have other things to do, but trading is likely a very vital part of your life as well. So it should be given the time, but it doesn't have to take up all of your time. Let the software do the work for you. And guess what? Not just on the entry, but also too on the trend. So we talked about position management. Let's roll on to that now. So with position management, we can see after you've entered into the trend, how do you know whether to stay or whether to go, right? That's the age-old question there in the markets is, do I stay in this trend? Do I think it's going to continue? Should I get out and take profits? I'm sure each and every one of you has asked yourself that question, probably on a daily basis when it comes to your positions. If that's the case, then simply just watch that blue line remain above the green or above the black line, and that trend remains green. I like a good color coding system, so as long as that's green, I know that that trend is expected to be bullish. Now, of course, there are some other components where you could strategically add to a position or scale out, and I understand that. Every trader is a little bit different. That's why VantagePoint gives you the flexibility and is customizable to each and every trade strategy. So you just have to find the one that's right for you and make the software do the work for you. So let's take a look then. All right. Yep, looks like everybody else can hear me. So if you are not hearing, I think we put that in the chat so that way we could get you back on and good to go with the sound. So let's go ahead and dive on in. Any questions? Pretty simple, right? Crossover to the upside, going to be indicated by green. Then we have a bullish trend on as long as that green continues. Same with bearishness. So let's take a look at the inverse here. We can see we've got a crossover to the downside right here on 10-2. Everybody seeing that? And full confirmation along with the neural index and our predictive differences running on down until we get that crossover to the upside. So timing the market, direction of the market, all things you need to know to be more confident in your trades. So let's take a look at how to find these types of opportunities. Now, I've got a couple of them that I saw in a scan earlier today, but before we get into the scan, I will take the first two assets. If you guys want to type in two ticker symbols, let's take a look. As long as VantagePoint forecast for them, we'll go ahead and pull those up and do some live analysis. I'd love to see where your thoughts are on the entry on these individual assets. So go ahead and maybe type in two ticker symbols for me, and I'll take the first two that come on in. All right, while you guys do that, I'm gonna jump on over here and we'll get some things pulled up. So one of them, and I think I may have already, yep, I've already got it pulled up. So Clorox is already up. Let's see, UAA, is that right? Thank you. All right, perfect. Under Armour. Okay, so let's jump on in. You know what? This is right in line. I'm so glad. I don't know who brought this up, but thank you. Oof, this is a fun one, right? Hopefully you're not long in this. Are you long in this one? Okay, I don't know. I didn't get an answer, so at least not yet, but that's okay. We'll take a look, or let me know. I mean, no judgment here, right? But we certainly want to help find opportunities and things that are going to help you make money. Maybe you're short, who knows? Of course, Paul, we'll definitely take a look at that as well. Under Armour, not much happening here other than we could potentially see some short-term bullishness. Now, I'm going to show you guys something. Now, watch very carefully what we're going to do here. I'm going to come on up to the view section. Now, this is for my users, all right? But also for those of you who might not know about VantagePoint yet, you can put this on different time frames. So if you are a shorter term trader and you want to take advantage of some quick, maybe 1 to 3 day type moves in the market, that's a short swing. And so if we take a look at our short-term crossover, this is going to give us a 1 day trend expectation. And if we look at that 1 day trend expectation, we do have a bullish crossover here. So let's walk through those 4 points of confirmation together on Under Armour. So although this isn't a bearish trend, can we still have some short bullish moves in the midst of a downtrend? Absolutely, right? That's what we would call a reversion to the mean in a downtrend. So let's identify a couple of these right here. Notice right here. Oops, sorry, my pen. Move a little slower. There we go. We've got a bullish move here, right? With confirmation. So you can see there are some potential, or you can turn around and use this to short the market as well. Again, markets move, and the movement is where traders capitalize on that movement to make money. So it doesn't matter if it's going up or down, as long as you know how to trade it, there's the potential for profits there. Now, everyone's a little different. So some traders like bullish moves, some traders like bearish moves. Tell me, do you short the market? Let me know in the comment section, because if so, we can also create some scans and look for opportunities to potentially short. But with current market conditions, we may be better off looking for some potentially bullish runs here coming up. So let's finish off our Under Armour. Can't remember who typed this in. I could jump back up, but a lot of you had typed in now. So we'll finish up here on Under Armour, and don't worry, I'm going to ask for some additional ticker symbols later. So again, keep those kind of fingers on the keys, and we'll get rocking and rolling on some analysis that you guys want to jump into after we do some screening. But let's take a look and find where we can identify these shorter term swings. So if we look at that short term crossover, again, looking at just 1 day out, looking at that 1 day trend forecast to see what do we expect this trend to do. Well, let's get that confirmation, right? So crossover to the upside, boom, yes. Do we have that? Absolutely. So let's take a look down at the neural index, and here we can see, yes, we do have the neural index also moving up, right? Green, okay? So green would be up in VantagePoint. So if you take a look down at your predictive differences, here we can truly say up because those blue lines are moving to the upside, right? So here we have those points of confirmation. Now, with all of my fun drawing, I know I won't quit my day job to be an artist, right? We'll stick to the technical analysis, but you can see we also have a predictive trade candle that has a higher high expected and a higher low. That is in fact why it is shaded on both ends of the candle. It's looking for that higher high and that higher low. And anybody want to just kind of take a look and tell me where is Under Armour at for today? Tell me in the chat if you could, and I will try to look that up as well. Let me see if I can get that pulled up for us. All right. It is at 450. All right, so if we take a look at our predictive trade candle, all right, now notice, I'll show you over here. All of this information that you're seeing right here, this predictive trade candle, the values are right over here on the left-hand side of your screen. So if you look over to the left, you'll see our predicted high was 447 with a low of 433. If you take a look at the range on Under Armour today, that range was 442 to 459. So, I mean, right within 10 cents of that predictive trade range. I don't know how much more accurate you can get, but there we go. VantagePoint does it, and it never ceases to amaze me on the accuracy of the forecast. So again, did price go up today? Absolutely. We can see that VantagePoint is now forecasting and had forecasted previously on, let's see, 11/21, a bullish expectation with that crossover, the neural index, predictive differences, and the predictive range. So if you are at that point and jumping in, let's just say maybe you got in the next day and up to it went up to 459, but we'll call it 450 just to even that out. But you've got a 5% move. All right. And we're not talking assets that cost $1,000 here, right? We're talking lower priced assets that many traders are looking for. Right? So whether you like to trade higher priced assets or you like smaller dollar assets that maybe are more affordable to you, then that's okay too. Maybe you like to trade options. There's options for that too, pun sort of intended there, right? So regardless of what style of trading you are, if you like that swing trade, whether shorter term, longer term, more of a position hold, VantagePoint can help guide you through the market movements, which is it's exactly what you need to help navigate through the markets and increase not only your efficiencies but also hopefully your accuracy as a trader by just having access to better information, right? Don't underestimate the power of good, accurate information. That's the basis of your trade strategy and the technical analysis here in VantagePoint, just powered by artificial intelligence. So what I like to say, supercharged. All right, so let's jump into Chipotle. All right. It's almost dinner time here in Florida, so this is going to make me a little bit hungry, but that's all right. We'll walk through this together to see if Chipotle could have some potential, or maybe it just didn't hit the spot today, right? So if we take a look at our current crossovers, now here's something that's very interesting is support and resistance. All right, who uses support and resistance? Let me ask that because I'm curious to see how many of you are seeing what I'm seeing with Chipotle right now. So let me know in the chat. I'm going to keep my eye on this for just a second because I want to know who is using support and resistance in their current trade strategy. In fact, if you are using support and resistance in your trade strategy, type that in the chat. Just type in SR or support and resistance, whatever's easiest for you, but let me know in the chat because that's going to be important in this analysis here. Yes, okay, most of you are. Okay, perfect. We've got questions on some institutions and we will get there. You, Dimitri, are you referencing like accumulation distribution? All right, let me know in the chat. There might be a small delay. Yeah, most of you are using support and resistance as well. So let me do this for you. Now, in VantagePoint, of course, there's indicators that come just with VantagePoint Standard. That's what we're looking at here. But there are some additional indicators. Of course, you can always increase your view on the VantagePoint if you choose to, and that would be like support and resistance. So if we use the support and resistance here in VantagePoint, we can see that very clearly we've created a support and resistance channel. Is anybody familiar with the support and resistance channel? Actually just did another training and we looked at something very similar. It was not Chipotle, but there was another market that was in a channel like this. And so I had questions on why isn't this moving anywhere? Well, support and resistance. And so what happens is resistance is pushing down on price. Okay, so this creates sort of a ceiling for price. Now, support, on the other hand, pushes up on price. And so when support is acting as a floor and resistance is acting as a ceiling, we have sort of what I like to call the bouncy ball effect or the ping pong effect. And that would be a channel is created where price is just ping ponging or creating this sort of bouncy ball effect within these two levels of support and resistance. And this happens because, well, as I mentioned earlier, resistance is going to push down on price and support's going to push up. And so at these sort of obstacles for price being resistance and support, will price have enough momentum, have enough strength, have enough kind of oomph, if you will, to really push through these key levels? And so understanding where key levels lie is basically like knowing a roadblock is coming. So you can either take a detour or know that, okay, it's just a small speed bump. I might need to slow down, maybe increase risk parameters, but I'm still going to be able to overcome this obstacle. And so again, you have to be able to identify where those obstacles are coming. And we've got support and resistance to help you better see that. So again, whether you're using support and resistance in VantagePoint or in your own platform, make sure that you're assessing support and resistance from not only this channel effect, but also allowing an asset to sort of have a little bit more room to run. All right, so we can see Chipotle right here. And in fact, kind of jumping back towards our scanning topic for today, I want to show you the difference between a channel like this and something that's maybe got a little bit more room to run. All right, so who wants to see an asset where we have more room before we hit a ceiling, right? Before we kind of smack your head on the ceiling and have to duck down because that hurt, right? Well, take a look at Clorox here because this is a very similar opportunity, right? We have Chipotle that was in a major downtrend. We had a big drop off, likely probably some earnings happening there. But if you notice back to Clorox, again, downtrend. But if we turn on those support and resistance indications as well, notice we don't have a channel down here where we did on Chipotle. We've got what I like to call a nice runway for price, right? Where we have no obstacles in our way immediately. So it gives the price time to generate some momentum as well, some sort of buying power, right? And so let's take a look at Clorox. You see we have a fresh crossover, okay? We've got our neural index trending up. We've got predictive differences coming up as well. So just check them. 1, 2, 3 points of confirmation already. And then of course I covered over it, but you can see the predictive trade candle, right? My drawings get a little out of hand sometimes. So let's see. Yep, there we go. Now you can see it. The predictive trade candle is green on both ends, meaning higher high is expected, higher low is expected. In a bullish trend, we want price to go up, right? We want higher lows. So let's look at that concept of higher lows right here. Here you can see support level established and then higher lows. That has to do a lot with momentum as well. That's going to help us to generate that true momentum in the trend. And we can see our strength indicators just continuing on bullish here. So somebody tell me what Clorox is, because this was actually a fresh crossover. We call it a fresh crossover when something just pops up one day ago to tell you, hey, this could be a pretty nice bullish expectation in this trend, because all of our indicators are in agreement here, all 4 points of confirmation. And if you're using support and resistance, we can see we've got some potential room to run before, again, we bang our head on anything that might likely hurt too bad and push us back down. So let's see. Okay, so CMG also finished above the predicted high today. Thank you, Ron, for that. That's perfect. We'll jump back to CMG in just a second. I just wanted to give you sort of a compare and contrast so you can see the different types of opportunities. Because oftentimes when we're looking at a channel like this is sort of things building up, right? We can see volatility can be building when we're in a channel like this. And then oftentimes we'll see a nice breakout to the upside. So if we're looking for that breakout to the upside or potentially breakout to the downside. So let's look at the last time Chipotle was in a channel, which was not too long ago, right? And then we had a breakout to the downside. Well, here's just VantagePoint doing it again, right? Whoever asked for CMG, I can't remember if it's you, Ron, or somebody else, but you can see after that channel, what happens with price? We get across to the downside, telling you, whoa, there's something shifting here. You need to be very cautious at this point. You may even think about getting out and taking profits because we have a shift in the trend. If it wasn't clear on 1024 when we had the crossover, your neural index, and the predictive differences moving, and I'll just pull these up a little bit because they are a little tight on that time frame, but you can see the predictive differences are moving down at that point in time as well, right here. So if we jump back to this day, now by the following day, then we definitely have confirmation here, likely also with our predictive trade candle as well, to say, all right, this is maybe a short opportunity, right? Maybe you like the downside. That's okay. Take advantage of that movement in the markets. But if you were in an uptrend or maybe you'd been holding CMG for a while, it didn't look like it was going to get any better anytime soon, right? So wait for those predictive indicators, wait for that predictive analysis to give you confirmation. Now, let's talk a little more support and resistance. And again, I know most of you were using support and resistance when I asked that earlier. So I'm just going to jump up here. If we closed above the predicted high, that would mean that we also closed above resistance. So could that potentially mean that we have an official break of resistance? Maybe not yet, right? So I would caution you, let me do just kind of a little pop quiz. And I love to do these occasionally just to see who's on their game today. All right. How many closes above a level of resistance would we need to confirm a breakout trend? I want to see who knows the answer to that. It's a fairly universal kind of guideline, if you will. And again, nothing is ever a guarantee in the market, but certainly if you have guidelines to follow where more than likely it's going to signify something, then you certainly want to know when it's likely to happen. All right, so CMG closed at 33. Thank you for that. Perfect. Ooh, somebody said 5. Somebody said 2. Anybody else want to give it a guess? All right, don't just guess, right? No. So 2 closes. So somebody said 3. All right, they're coming in now. So it's actually 2. So if you learned this from today's session, great. We learned something new today. Your time was certainly well spent, and I'm so glad that you spent it with me here looking at charts because, well, this is what I love to do all day, every day. But let's jump back to resistance. So as you can see, we have resistance sitting right here, and I'll just draw that line a little darker there for you guys so you can see it. Now at resistance, did we close above? We did. We closed at 33, right? So closing right there above resistance would confirm 1 day. That's a 1-day confirmation of the close above a resistance level, meaning we're potentially broken through. I would say maybe we have our foot in the door, right? But have we fully opened the door, and are we able to run through? Not quite yet, because we would need that secondary close. Now, that's not just any secondary close. It's 2 consecutive closes, meaning we want today and possibly tomorrow to close above resistance to signify that breakout trend. So if we're able to close another day, and again, this is just a hypothetical because we don't have tomorrow's close yet. That's tomorrow. But that would help you to confirm the 2-day closes above the resistance to help you, again, anticipate that expected breakout trend. Now, confirm that with your crossover, neural index, predictive differences, And then you start to generate the real confidence to make a trade decision here, right? So again, we don't have that yet, but that's a hypothetical to just give you an example of how to utilize support and resistance in your own trading. Again, looking for either things that are not above, or that are not yet against resistance, similar to Clorox, or compare and contrast, we've got CMG where we're waiting for that 2 closes above to possibly confirm that breakout trend to the upside, right? If we can't, then we're either stuck in this channel or we may come back to retest the lower end of this as well. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to happen. I'm not even saying we're going to have a breakout. What I'm telling you is that you're going to watch for those 2 closes above to signify that breakout and resistance, and you trade that however works best with your own trade strategy. All right. But having that information can give you confidence to execute whatever strategy suits your trading best. All right. So rocking and rolling right along. Let's do this. I'm going to jump into the IntelliScan. So while I open up IntelliScan, remember that's our stock screener that VantagePoint utilizes to scan through these predictive indicators. I'm just going to come up to IntelliScan. But while I do this, do me a huge favor. Go over to the chat and let me know. Yes, you guys got it. Perfect. Let me know if you guys want to look for opportunities for breakouts, or maybe you're looking for something that's not right up against resistance, maybe with that sort of runway, if you will. We'll take a look at a couple of different scenarios, but I want to scan for what you guys are looking for, because we've got a lot of opportunities here within the individual sectors, but possibly a lot of money flowing in from the holiday season as well. So as we come into the holiday season, will money start to flow into those individual sectors also? Of course, we've got things like consumer, right? We've got consumer discretionary, consumer non-discretionary, lots of different asset classes that we can look at, even technology from a, financial standpoint. A lot of different sectors start to move and pick things up during the holiday season. And so being able to identify what markets are moving faster than others during this time can certainly help you beat that holiday rush, right? So, okay, Macy's, sure, we can certainly take a look at that. Yeah, let us know what you want to scan for today, all right? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull this up, and while you're over there in the chat, I'm going to pull open our market. So I'm just going to take all of our U.S. stocks. Guys, we forecast for so many different assets. It's absolutely amazing, the data that VantagePoint runs through and gives forecasts for. So you've got Forex, ETFs, U.S. stocks, crypto, we've got different themes that you can break these categories out into. So if you're looking at cloud computing, electric vehicles, artificial intelligence, I won't name every single one because you guys can obviously read here on the list. But, VantagePoint makes it very easy to scan for different types of opportunities. And one way to do that is to add categories. So let me add our stocks first. So all I'm going to do, this is kind of the fun part. I like it because you can just drag and drop the stocks right on into the IntelliScan. So I just dragged all of those US stocks on over into the IntelliScan. It's going to load those up for us very quickly. And again, we're looking at over 1,800 different assets, all right, individual stocks there. But again, you don't want to or have to look through each one individually. We're going to let the software do the work for us. One way to do that, though, is to also get categories. So let me just pull this up, coming over to our list of indicators over here on the side, and I'm going to add category to our scan. So this is going to give us the list of assets within their individual categories. We can see consumer cyclical, non-cyclical. You've got cybersecurity, healthcare, technology, right? You've even got utilities. And so with the category, you can then start to hone in or focus on certain areas of the market, especially, again, during times like the upcoming holiday season, right? So if we now take category into account and we look for those crossovers. So I'm just going to set these directions up. It's really that simple. You can either type in up or you can just click the drop down and select up on your own. Again, super, super simple. And that's how we like it. Simple and easy, but very, very powerful. So I'm going to select all of this to up. Everything that we're selecting here is our 4 points of confirmation that you guys all know how to read now because we just went over several charts with that, right? So you can see medium-term crossover, that's up. Neural index trend, that's up. Short-term difference, again, those are our predictive differences. Here's your neural index. Here's your crossover, right? So we're looking for those opportunities that are going up, all right? Now, if you take a look then at the medium-term crossover, we can see things that are expected to move up. Let's take a look at Apple. You know what? Let's just pull up a couple of these first ones that we see. So I'm going to jump into Apple first. All right. So let's take a look. Everybody else, I want you to kind of get your hands on the keyboard here because I'm going to ask a couple of questions because I want to make sure you guys understand how to do this on your own. When I'm not here, right, and I'm not walking you through this, are you confident to walk through these steps on your own? All right. So take a look first. And I like to do this with each one. I like to look at that short-term crossover. Look at things on a shorter time frame. Again, whether you're a VantagePoint family member and you have access to the incredible power of the predictive indicators here, or you're using a different platform where you just have those traditional indicators, still arm yourself with the most information. And hey, if you need more information on how to incorporate artificial intelligence in your trading, just go ahead into the description. I know we're going to put in the chat. You can go to VantagePointForecast.com and find more information there as well on using AI and artificial intelligence in your trading. So don't forget to like and subscribe as well, and that'll help to push out some notifications for you so you know when we're jumping on to do some trainings like this. All right, so let's jump back into the forecast, because like I said, whether you're using VantagePoint or using a different platform, understanding the short, the medium, the long-term time frame is critical because it can help you shape and develop your strategy and your position management moving forward. So looking at a shorter term time frame, we can see we have some short-term strength coming into this trend. All right. So our shorter term expectation, one day expecting bullishness. Now, if we jump on over to that medium term crossover, again, this is just going to give us more confirmation. I want to check the boxes on as much confirmation as possible before possibly risking your hard-earned money in the markets. You should want to do that, right? You should want good confidence in the moves that you are risking your capital in. And so give yourself that confirmation. Here we have a medium-term crossover. Again, blue line over black, and it's green, so confirming that crossover. Long-term crossover. Long-term crossover is also up. That's a 3-day trend expectation. So over the next 3 days, VantagePoint saying we expect this trend to continue in a bullish movement. And then as we look at our most conservative crossover here, and these crossovers all come with VantagePoint itself. This is 3 different predictive moving averages on the screen at the same time. This is what we call the triple cross. All right. Think of this as kind of the trifecta of predictive moving averages here. And it's going to, in fact, give you the relationship. How are these predictive moving averages working together? Are they working together to form a strong uptrend, a strong downtrend, or is it a trend that we're starting to see some weakness in? So let's evaluate currently. I'm going to just jump in a little closer on Apple. I think everybody likes to evaluate Apple. It's one of those that I get inevitably every training session. So if you take a look here, and this, again, pulled up in our stock screener, all right? I didn't just pop this up. This was assets that we put into the scan. So notice this is giving you a bit of consolidation, right? We saw a little bit of that weakness in the trend. And VantagePoint saying, hey, there's some level of caution. It's yellow, kind of like a stoplight, right? When you see yellow, you should slow down, don't speed up, right? Unless you see green, and that's when you can start speeding up. And that's what we see happening here. So you can see that we have renewed bullish strength coming into this trend after a bit of weakness. So when we see that weakness, right, it's typically when we'll see a dip in the market. So if you like to buy the dip, right, then you can see these indicators can help you identify that movement in the market so you can wait for the pullback and enter in at a more ideal price point, right? So looking at how these indicators work together can help guide you through a really great strategy with a lot of confidence as well. All right, now let's take a look at, I'm just going to jump this back to our medium-term crossover because that's what we were scanning for. We were looking for that one-day crossover right here on the medium term. So if we look down at the predictive neural index, that's up, predictive differences are up, and predictive trade candle is up as well. So you can see here that we've got full confirmation. Now, everything that I just showed you on this chart is in fact included in the VantagePoint software, all right? So the only thing that we've touched on today that might be additional would be the support and resistance. And of course, we've got additional indicators. I mean, a lot of traders want additional confidence for their trade strategies, and that's available if you need it or if you want it, right? If that's part of your trade strategy, why not power it with artificial intelligence? You know how much that's worth, especially when you're talking about increasing your accuracy in your own individual trade strategies and using the power of artificial intelligence. Yeah, it can make a very big difference, and I've definitely seen that time and time again. So if we take a look at just, again, our VantagePoint crossovers, we've got a nice move here, and look, we're using that in our scan today too. So Apple's one of the first one that pulled up. You can also see Broadcom as well. We had a nice pull back in Broadcom, and now do we see a sort of resumption in this trend? And here's something really important. How many of you have been whipsawed out of a trade before? Just type in whipsaw if that's happened to you. Trust me, if you don't know what whipsaw is, you probably haven't experienced it, but I'm sure most of you have, right? Because it does happen in the markets, and that's why using artificial intelligence to guide you through the trends can be incredibly valuable, because you have confidence to move with the trend and move with the expectation rather than letting the emotions of maybe what happened before get in the way. And so it allows you to just kind of peel back that emotion and trade based on what you're seeing rather than what you're feeling. And so Broadcom, again, another type of opportunity that pulled up right here. Of course, we're looking at technology, right? That's expected to move, right? Coming into the holiday season, it's not just consumer cyclical, it's not just consumer discretionary, but there are also other great areas of the market that you can identify and capitalize on when we start to see things moving with such confidence using the AI. So let's take a look. Ron, you had asked for MDT. So tell me, let's take a look. MDT. We've had a lot of movement in the healthcare sector. So again, coming into this holiday season, we also have a lot of family coming around, right? A lot of gatherings. So, flu season, all of that fun or not so fun stuff coming in, right? So we also see healthcare also starting to really move, and actually has been on the move for some time. So how are you identifying sectors that are moving maybe better than the overall markets? Because if you notice MDT, right, this was during kind of the major downturn in the market. So if we take a look at MDT using the confidence of VantagePoint, we had full confirmation right here. Let's see what date this is. This is 11/10. So on 11/10, we had full confirmation of a bullish expectation here, and that has remained bullish all throughout this trend. And I am just going to grab my profit calc tool. Of course, we've got a tool to draw a trend line and also calculate that trend line. So let's just draw up to current. Ron, can you do me a favor? Tell me, where did MDT close at today? I can find it pretty quickly, but let's just take a look. I will enlist the help of you guys. Our viewers out there closed at 105. So I'm going to just jump this up because we closed at 105.35. Close enough. All right. I tried to get spot on the penny, but sometimes. So, I mean, that's from crossover to current day. You've got to move about 14.55%. And that's just in 12 days. That's $13.40 per share. You're looking at a profit. Again, if you're trading options, minus premium, of course. But just on this bullish move, 500 shares, you can see the profit here. Not everyone's going to get exactly this. Is going to depend upon your entry timing and, of course, your exit and your overall strategy as well. But you can see, using the accuracy of the software, if you just used VantagePoint, the crossover, the neural index, the predictive differences for those 4 points of confirmation on the entry here, and then also continue to manage that based on the predictive confirmation of that trend, you've got a great trend and some great potential here in the markets, even when everyone else is saying the markets are so terrible, right? And that's just not the case, right? We've got to be careful to jump on the bandwagon of just assuming that everything is the markets are, under attack or, getting emotional about it. And I think that's the key here is withholding the emotions, looking at the data, and just assessing. All right. Use the data as your reliable resource, right? Not the news, because we know that can definitely get things a little bit more emotional than the true data. Kind of, obviously I'm being a little sarcastic there, but you can see, of course, with the data, we are continuing to just find these excellent trends. And again, if you're looking for opportunities like that, that's exactly the scan that we built for today. Now, if you want to look at assets in the consumer cyclical sector, let's take a look and see what we've got. So we can just select category. This is how easy it is. You can say, hey, VantagePoint, give me assets that are in the sort of holiday sector that most people would consider. So let's take a look at something like consumer non-cyclical. All right, we could even add the consumer cyclical as well, but we've got quite a few opportunities here. So we'll just jump this down. Again, Clorox showed up, so we know this is in that sector that's typically tending to trend this time. Now, let me ask this. Does anybody use any sort of seasonal analysis? Tell me if you're using any sort of seasonal analysis. I'll kind of throw that in the scan as well. Just kind of a little added extra for today. But we can see here we've got Tyson Foods, right? Anybody talking turkey, right? So we can see Tyson in a nice uptrend. Again, we had that confirmation previously, even prior to that big candle. I'm just going to jump over to that short-term crossover. And you can see here that we had that crossover back on 11/21 with 4 points of confirmation, meaning potential entry on that day. And so that would be kind of day of execution, if you will. Now, if you wanted to navigate through some of these dips in the market as well, that's where you could jump over to that triple cross, understanding how these crossovers work together. Again, we could see this was just a bit of weakness, but the overall longevity of this trend remained bullish. So here can help you navigate through, maybe if you like to hold on to positions a little longer. All right, this is a great way to assess that. Or if you're looking, maybe you got in with our 4 points of confirmation, exited out, rode that back, hopefully didn't ride that back down, but wait for the dip, right? And then enter back in. So a lot of different ways to strategize around using these predictive indicators. It all just depends upon your strategy. And that's why we have the resources here at VantagePoint as well. But regardless of your strategy, if you want moves to the downside, you look for red. If you want moves to the upside, you look for green. And so you can, of course, adjust those to your own personal preferences depending upon your time frames and holds. But you as a trader get to decide that. VantagePoint's not telling you what to do or how to spend your money. You are going to be in control of your money, which no one's going to take better care of it than you, right? So know your strategy, know what to look for, and execute on these incredible opportunities coming from the VantagePoint software, especially in the screener. So let's take a look at some consumer non-cyclical as well, or I'm sorry, consumer cyclical rather. So let's take a look here at some of those holiday assets. You can see, of course, Carvana coming on up. We have quite a few here. We've got 21 opportunities here. So you could narrow this down as well. In fact, let's do that. Who uses trade volume? All right, jumping back over. Let me see. Okay. Yes, seasonal too. Okay. Well, I'll just kind of add in a little bonus for today for us to look at. But let me get volume in here first. Volume, again, is also something that you can utilize just right there within the VantagePoint software. Comes ready to use in the IntelliScan. We'll just set that volume, trade volume, at greater than or equal to, I like a good baseline of about 1 million or more. Everyone's a little different, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. This is what happens when you talk and try to count zeros at the same time. I think I have, yep, I got 6 in there. Okay, good. So if you see we've got trade volume right on in there at 1 million or more, that's going to narrow us down to some higher quality assets. And trade volume is important because liquidity is important in the markets. Understand that there are two parties whenever you are buying or selling a stock. there has to be a buyer and there has to be a seller, right? One's buying, one's selling simultaneously. And so volume is important, because when you're ready to sell, is there somebody there to buy? When you're ready to buy, is there somebody there willing to sell? So that liquidity, that activity in the market or that particular asset is really important for most trade strategies. So make sure that you are also assessing from volume. And again, that can narrow down your opportunities to more higher quality opportunities, if you will. So let's jump on into some of these. We could take a look at Mattel, right? We would expect to see something there. All right, so let's take a look. Are we in a current uptrend? Just jump on over to that triple cross. You can see longer term uptrend, right? Really easy way. We're still green. Okay, now let's take a look. Why are we seeing this? Well, it's had a medium-term crossover recently with 4 points of confirmation. So look at that. Even if you thought you missed out on an opportunity, FOMO, no more, because we've got a crossover right here to the upside. We've got the bullish neural index confirming. We've got predictive differences coming on up and a predictive trade candle that is also bullish as well. So no matter the types of opportunities you're looking for, you can have the scan work for you and find those different types of opportunities. All right, so seasonal. Let's take a look. We've got just a few minutes left, so we're gonna do something a little special today, because it helps if you can spell it correctly. There we go. I had a fat finger moment. So let's take a look at the seasonal 30-day forecast. And guys, this is exactly what it sounds like. Now, again, some of the indicators we're using right now are going to be optional, like the support and resistance as well. But if you know that you can forecast with an incredible accuracy, I'm going to just say, you know what, give me anything that's a really high, confidence level. There we go. Oh, there we go. Equal high. That's what we needed. Okay, so then we can look and see what the seasonal percentage move is on some of these assets. All right, so if you're looking over the next 30 days, do we have a positive value for that seasonal expectation? And we can see that we do on many of these assets. If you want to narrow things down, then say, or maybe, you know what, maybe you want to look at that 15-day. Maybe you just want to see what's happening over the next couple of weeks with Black Friday and the Christmas season coming. Then you can narrow that down and adjust the formula within these markets or within these filters to look for maybe a 15-day forecast. What does seasonality look like over the next 15 days? Are we expecting bullishness, bearishness? How much? Right? Seasonally, you can take a look at the forecast. What does that asset typically do during this time of year? So if we apply that 15-day forecast, I'll just go ahead and select OK here. We'll take a look at that 15-day forecast, and let me just remove that here for a second. You can take a look at some of the high, low, neutral opportunities. Now, the smaller the time frame, all right, the less confident. But if you take a look at that 30-day, we had quite a few coming on up that would be expected to be bullish over the next 30 days. So as a trader, you decide what opportunities would work best for you. So let's take a look at that high confidence level again, just over the next 30 days. All right, so 30-day forecasting of the seasonality. We can see Sunoco has got a nice bullish expectation over the next 30 days. We also have a fresh crossover here, right? Again, these are multiple assets within the consumer cyclical. We took a look at Mattel already. Let's take a look at Yeti and see what we've got. Again, a nice bullish seasonal forecast of 6.65% just over the next 30 days. Now, this is data coming in over the last 7 years. You can see that right here. It's assessing the last 7 years and what Yeti did from a price gain standpoint. Because this is bullish, we would expect price gain of potentially 6.65%. Again, that's an average over the last 7 years. So if the last 7 years, Yeti's typically gone up over the next 30 days, do you have more confidence than in the bullish expectation? You should, right? Because we've got more confirmation equals more confidence. And that's what VantagePoint really is all about. So we've looked at several different assets. Is there one more that you guys want to look at? I know we're at like that 1 minute mark, but you know, 'tis the season. So let's just go ahead and look at one more. If there's one more, you guys. Okay, GPN. I see that. Let me jump on in. Nerve open. I gotcha. GPN. Global payments. All right. And the only reason that one is not showing up, just so you know, is because we were looking at consumer cyclical. All right. We're using the scan to identify specific types of opportunities. But as you can see, we can pull up individual opportunities on their own as well. So GPN, we can see here currently is in a downtrend. We may see some short-term strength. If we switch over to our, let me just see here. If we switch over to the short-term crossover, I'm sorry, I had things freezing on my end here for just a moment. All right, so we do have that short-term crossover already. All right, now we also have a bearish neural index. We would want to just be maybe a little bit more cautious here, but I think the GPN was up at 74.02, right? So its range for today was 73.05 to 74.74. Take a look here, and it's right within that predicted range. It actually beat the predicted high today, landing at 74.02. And so, yes, we did, in fact, beat that predicted high, jumping all the way up, possibly to 74.74. But a higher high was expected for today, right? So we were expecting that higher high, and our low was above the low from yesterday. So just a few cents off when it comes to the predicted low. In fact, just about $1, but on a $72 asset. That's pretty accurate if you ask me. You can see that predictive information right over here. 72.27 was expected, and 73.05 was our low for today. So actually less than $1. Again, VantagePoint does it again, right? So if you see, we are currently, again, in that bearish trend. Will VantagePoint's forecast continue that bullish expectation? That will be the question of the night, right? When the software updates at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If we're to expect additional bullishness, then we would like to see that predictive neural index start to trend up, our bullish trend continue, and those predictive differences gain a little bit more strength to the upside, right? And again, that's on the short-term crossover. We have not yet crossed over to the upside on the medium term just yet. So this is a bit earlier identification of a trend. But if we do get that confirmation, then you can confidently make that trade decision for yourself. So I hope everyone has a fantastic holiday ahead. We will be back for a live after Thanksgiving. So, of course, with the holiday rush and everything, I hope everyone is utilizing that IntelliScan. If you need additional help understanding how to really just use VantagePoint either to its full advantage or start taking advantage of the predictive indicators here in VantagePoint, don't forget to visit VantagePointForecast.com. You can see just how incredibly accurate and easy. That's the key thing, is easy and efficient. VantagePoint is to use to not only help you find opportunities, but also make a decision on those opportunities based on the predictive technical analysis. So again, hope everyone has a great weekend ahead and enjoys their time. If you're here in the States, you're eating lots of turkey or maybe something else this holiday. But either way, enjoy, and we'll see you guys on another session next week. Have a fantastic rest of your day.